Welcome to the Manhood Understood podcast.
What's going on, son?
What's going on?
Not much.
We pre-recorded last week, so it's been a while since you've been on, so we got some things to talk about.
Yeah. I completed the Marine Corps Marathon. I went on a hunting trip to Minnesota with our first guest, Ryan Mickler, our friend and first guest, Ryan Mickler.
Nice. What are your overall thoughts on how the marathon went?
So I had a goal of a sub 4-hour marathon and didn't quite reach that goal. Set that goal. I can't remember the last marathon I did. It was the Disney marathon, and probably was the best shape I was in, at least running wise, in my life. And I just missed sub 4-hour. So I set a goal of someday completing a sub 4-hour marathon. I thought this would be the one, but unfortunately fell a little short of that goal. I did complete it, 4 hours, 39 minutes, and 7 seconds.
Well, now you have a reason to go back out next year.
Yeah, unfortunately I do. So just by way of history, for those of you who may not know, the reason I set that goal of sub 4-hour marathon with the idea that maybe I might never run another marathon. But you came to me, I think, in March of last year?
Yeah, pretty early on.
Yeah, because it was before the Marine Corps half marathon, and that was, May?
Yeah.
So you came to me in, I think, March or April of last year and said you wanted to do the Marine Corps Marathon, and did I want to do it with you? And, of course, I said yes because, one, the Marine Corps Marathon has always been on my bucket list, and two, I would love to have run a marathon with you. I thought that would be fun. Unfortunately, you got hurt doing some training, tore a couple ligaments in your foot, but I decided I was going to march on and continue to do it, and figured since I had just missed the 4-hour mark at that last Disney marathon, I would shoot for sub 4 hours for this one.
Yeah. So what'd your training look like to try and hit that sub 4?
So I actually purchased it was like $20 training program, I think, through the Marine Corps Marathon people. I don't know. I think it was an email, like a partnership. Trying to think of the name of the company that I bought the marathon training plan from. I forget now, but it was a workup of typical marathon workup. The furthest they had you run during the training plan was 20 miles. They had me do that twice. So basically, when you do these workups, you run shorter distances during the week, and on the weekends you run long distances. And the distance builds each week. And that's really where the training for the marathon comes in, because it's more about getting used to being on your feet and for that long. And it goes in like waves almost. It'll build you up to a certain distance, and then you'll back off for a week, and then you'll go back up to a longer distance. So felt okay during my training. I kind of knew that the 4-hour sub 4-hour was going to be close. And for the first 16 miles, it was close. I kept that pace. It has to be between a 9 and a 9.5 minute mile. You can't do all 9.5 minute miles; you'll fall short. But if you keep it somewhere between 9 and 9.5 minutes throughout, you'll hit just around sub 4. But kept it for the first 16 miles and then hit a wall. The last 10 miles might have taken me just as long as the first 16.
Yeah. Was there any challenges that you faced during your training?
Yeah, so I made a huge kind of error, and the week before the marathon was supposed to be, they taper you off at the end of your training plan, and the week before the marathon, the Saturday before the marathon, or I should say the Saturday before the weekend, so the week before, I had the training plan called for a 6-mile easy jog, and I decided I was going to do the sprint workout that the wrestling team was doing. And my ego got the best of me. And at 51 years old, I tried to keep up with a bunch of 21 and under college athletes and kind of tweaked my hamstring. So wasn't anything major. Didn't feel like it was anything I couldn't work through for the marathon. Did one run during that week. I think I skipped one run. Did one short run during that week. It didn't feel great, but I got the run in. It was 3 miles. And by race day, I was a little nervous. I mean, I was unsure. I wasn't pain free, but I figured I could get through it. And first 3 miles of the marathon was keeping that good pace. I don't remember now, but it was around that between that 9.5 minute mile pace. And at mile 3, I went to pass somebody on the right, and the marathon's in the road, but on the right, at this particular spot in the marathon was like a grass medium with a curb. So I went to pass the guy on the right on the grass medium, and as I was coming down to pass him off the grass medium, a girl was coming on the left of him, also passing him, and if we had both kind of kept going the way we were going to collide. So I kind of pulled up and was half on the curb, half off the curb, and I heard and felt a pop in that same hamstring. For like 2 seconds, I pulled up. You see those videos of people who pull their hamstrings. They kind of pull up short and they grab their whatever hamstring it is. That I probably did that. I imagine I did that. But then said to myself, just keep going and see if it goes away, which certainly isn't the smartest thing to do, and probably not realistic, but was able to keep that pace for the next 13 miles. And then, like I said, at mile 16, it just caught up to me and I just couldn't keep the pace. I slowed down to about, I think my final time was like a 10.5 minute mile average. So was happy that I completed it. A little disappointed that I fell short to the sub 4 hour.
Yeah. Well, I think it's valid of enough reason to fall short of the goal. But going into it, were you a little worried about the injury, or were you just excited to run the marathon?
Yeah, I was a little worried about the injury. Again, it was probably more the sub 4 hour goal than anything else. I wasn't planning on re-injuring it or hurting it worse, but I kind of felt like, well, it's not enough pain to worry about not finishing the marathon, but I was a little worried. I don't know if I was excited or not. I think it was a little anticlimactic not being able to run it with you, and to be honest, was kind of over the training. The training took a toll on my body a little bit and was like just ready for it to be over. So, but of course on race day, it's always exciting. You get to the starting line and there's the adrenaline's there and there's all kinds of people there. And especially with this one is kind of a special atmosphere with the Marines all lining the course, and they have, and I wasn't really paying as much attention as I would have liked or should have been, but they give a little spiel about the Marine Corps Marathon as you're waiting for it to start. It was actually the 50th anniversary, so that was pretty cool to run the 50th anniversary of the Marine Corps Marathon. And what I didn't know is, and I did catch this during the introduction when we were standing there waiting for the start, is that it's called the People's Marathon. I'm not really sure why they call it the People's Marathon, other than maybe it is the largest marathon in the world that doesn't offer any prize money, and it's just about community, personal achievement, and kind of honoring the military values of the Marine Corps. So maybe that's why it's the People's Marathon. There's no prize money. It's just literally done for kind of an achievement or an accomplishment.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique experience. And so mile 3, you pull your hamstring, and then you don't stop running until mile 16. So you basically ran a half marathon before stopping again. What was going through your mind during those 13 miles?
Just don't quit. Just keep going, one foot in front of the other. This story, and my grandmother, when I was probably, I don't even remember now, 11, 12 years old, had given me 2 poems that were cut out of a newspaper. They were literally cut out of a newspaper, and she had the original copies. She photocopied them be nice if I had those originals, but I don't. I think hopefully you might not have them anymore. I gave them to you when you were going to boot camp, the photocopies that my grandmother gave me, but it was 2 poems. One was called Your Name. I think they were both by the same guy, Edgar Allan Poe. One was called Your Name, and the other one was called Don't Quit. And in that poem, and I don't know it off the top of my head, and I don't have a copy with me, but there's a line that basically says, and I'm paraphrasing that, slow down, but don't quit. So that was kind of what was going through my head. If I have to slow down, I'll slow down, but don't quit. And that's what happened at mile 16. I finished those last 10 miles, just kind of off the top of my head, came up with a strategy that I would walk a quarter mile and run 3/4 of a mile. And that's what I did. So at mile 16, I walked a quarter mile, and then I finished the mile out. And then at mile 17, quarter mile, walk, finished the mile out, and that's how I finished the marathon. So the whole time, that's what was going through my head, that poem of don't quit. Slow down, but don't quit. And the gist of the poem is that life's going to have ups and downs, and you're going to have times that are harder than others, so you can slow down, but don't ever quit. So one foot in front of the other.
So once you finally finished the marathon, crossed the finish line, what was going through your head at that point?
Honestly, I was just happy to be done, and I wanted to get out of there and find you and your mother and your siblings. There was again, it was a little anticlimactic. There was no real sense of accomplishment. I think there was a little bit of disappointment that I was injured, that I didn't reach my goal. One of the things that was a little disheartening during the marathon at the end was they have pacers, and the pacers hold up signs that say like basically what the pace is, right? So I remember the 4:15 pacer passing me and trying to keep up with him or her. I don't remember if it was a girl or a guy, and just couldn't keep up with him. And then the 4:30 pacer came by and was like, all right, I'm going to keep up with the 4:30 pacer, and just couldn't keep up with whoever was holding the sign. So that was a little disheartening. And, one of the things in hindsight, when I reflect on it, is it ended at the Iwo Jima Memorial, and there was people taking pictures in front of the Iwo Jima Memorial, and I barely looked at it. It was like herding, it was like herding cattle to get you out of there. I think there was like 40,000 runners for this marathon, which I think is more than they normally allow, probably because it was the 50th anniversary. So it was very hard to get out of there. So I was just trying to get out of there and find you and your mother and your siblings. And the other thing is I had to get on a plane to Minnesota, right? I took a plane that evening. So I didn't have a whole lot of time between the end of the race, get cleaned up, and get on the plane to go to this bow hunt out in Minnesota. But I wish I had enjoyed the scenery a little more, taking in, we crossed the Potomac. We started at the Pentagon, near Arlington National Cemetery, crossed the Potomac River. And to be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention to much of that. I was just focused on right in front of me and one foot in front of the other and finishing the race. So would have liked to have taken in the scenery and enjoyed the run a little more.
Yeah, hopefully you can do that next year.
Yeah, I'm not signing up until you sign up. So, and I'll be honest with you, if for some reason you can't do it next year, I'm not sure. Well, I shouldn't say that, because if I'm training for it, I probably will. But something I'm certainly going to train a little differently, as far as probably things, if in hindsight, better nutrition, better mobility and flexibility training. I didn't do any of that stuff. I did some strength training throughout my running. I added in I think it was 2 days. In the beginning it was 3 days, but towards the end it was 2 days of strength training. But I'll definitely add in more mobility and flexibility training and better nutrition if I'm going to do it again. And I'll probably, as soon as I heal up, I'm actually going to a doctor tomorrow to get the hamstring checked out. I'm 99% sure I tore it. There's a pretty significant bruise on my hamstring, and still not in excruciating pain, but still in pain. I took a couple walks this week, and 4 miles in one day, 3 the other day, and by the end of both, I was kind of limping a little bit. So, not so much am I concerned that I did a lot of damage. I just don't want to do any permanent damage. In younger years, I would have just said, I'm not going to see a doctor, and I'll let it heal on its own. And as I age, I'm getting a little smarter, and I just want to make sure that there's no permanent damage or it's not going to affect me down the road in any way. So stay tuned. We'll see what the doctor says tomorrow. It's been about a week and a half now, almost 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks on Sunday. So still a little bit of a bruise there. So we'll see what the doctor says tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, other than dealing with the hamstring, how did this marathon compare to some of the other ones you've done in the past?
So I can't remember if I've done 4 other ones or three other ones. I know I did the Philly Marathon once, the Disney Marathon twice, and I may have done the Philly Marathon twice as well, but because I also did the half marathon a couple times, so I'm not sure. I can't remember now, but I'll tell you the very first marathon I did was the Philadelphia Marathon, and I hadn't done any training for it whatsoever. I was doing CrossFit at the time, so I was in pretty good CrossFit shape. I had already owned the CrossFit, and that same year, our friend Bobby Brown and his brother Eric, I think, did the Marine Corps Marathon, and they had done no marathon training. I think they did like 120+ mile run, and they were big CrossFitters as well. Better CrossFitters than I was, and certainly in better shape than I was. And they finished the Marine Corps Marathon in like 3.5 hours and carried a flag. But so all that to say, that's why I was like, well, I'm going to try this Philly Marathon with no traditional marathon training. I'm just going to continue to do CrossFit. And I think it took me like 5.5 hours. It definitely took me more than 5 hours, probably close to 5.5 hours. I don't remember exactly now. And I was miserable at the end. Uncle Kevin had dropped me off in the morning, and then Danielle had picked me up. Uncle Kevin had something to do. Danielle had picked me up, and she found me somewhere at the finish line laying on the ground. And she's like, hey, do you want to go get a drink, get something to eat? And I said, Danielle, I just need to get home. So she took me back over the bridge to their house in South Jersey. And actually, Mr. O'Melia was there. And, I hadn't seen him in quite a while, but I had to apologize to him and say, Mr. O, I'd like to hang out and talk, but I still got another 45-minute ride home. And I want to get home. And literally came home, grabbed the blanket, got in the recliner, put the blanket over me, and slept the rest of the day. So that was not the greatest experience, but again, I was glad I finished, and that was the goal that time, was just to finish. The next one that I remember, again, I can't remember if I had done another Philly Marathon. I don't know. I'll have to look back. If I did, I'm sure I still have the medal somewhere. But the other 2 that I remember were the Disney Marathons. And we did that was with Jarvis and Silva and that group, and we did the Goofy Challenge, which was the half marathon on Saturday and the full marathon on Sunday. And I believe I lucked out. I trained for that first one, and I actually lucked out. They canceled the half marathon because of lightning, so I only had to do the full that year. And that year I was right around that 4.5 hour mark. I think actually a little better than the Marine Corps Marathon. But no injury, just that was the condition I was in. I had been diagnosed that year with, I guess diagnosis is the right term, with arthritis in both my knees. And the knee doctor that I saw, I told him that I was planning on doing the half marathon and the marathon, and he said, you won't even finish the marathon. So I took that as a challenge and then found a new doctor. So that was about 4.5 hours. And then the following year, I did an actual training plan, and my nutrition was on point. I was working with a nutritionist, followed a training plan, and that was the year that I was probably in the best running shape, maybe the best shape in my life. And during the training, I had done the Princeton half marathon, and I think I did it in like an hour and 50 minutes, something pretty, for me, pretty crazy. So fast forward a couple months to the Disney Marathon, and it turned out that year it was just Mike Silva and I running in it, and we were on pace to do like right under 4, maybe like 350, 355, something like that. And the year before, Jarvis and Silva had done like 403, 405, something like that. We didn't run together that year because I was quite a bit slower than them. But this year, Jarvis wasn't able to do it that year. Silva and I had run it together, and at like mile 20, Silva started cramping. So, the deal was we start together, we finish together, and we still did like 405, like right around the 4 hour mark. So we just missed it. So that was the impetus for the sub 4 hour. But yeah, that was like, we did the half marathon the day before, which was just like, I mean, out of the 4 that I remember, that was the most enjoyable marathon. And that weekend, the running the half on Saturday really didn't affect us on Sunday. And, I remember finishing that one and feeling good, like feeling, happy or good about the run. So
Yeah, it's definitely more enjoyable when you're not dying at the end.
yeah, for sure. Again, in hindsight, I'm proud that I finished it. It's like, I don't know if proud's the right word to say that I finished it, because honestly, if it was anybody else, I wouldn't recommend, if you feel a pop in here and feel a pop in your hamstring, to continue at mile 3 to continue running. But, there's a little bit of pride in the fact that I was able to push myself through that. One of the, I told a guy today when I was telling him about, a guy in the Iron Council today, about not reaching my sub 4 hour goal, and what I told him, and he said, yeah, you still finished it and still ran it faster than the people that didn't run it, and which I appreciate. But the bottom line is this: is the sub 4 hour goal does not define me, right? It's not going to define who I am, but nowhere in my vision does it say I want to complete a sub 4 hour marathon. But it does say that I one of my core values is perseverance, and that I do hard things. And so in that sense, I am living my vision. And why is that important? Why is doing hard things important? I think doing hard things is important, and it's why I do these types of things. And over the years, is in good times, when you do hard things voluntarily, during bad times, when the hard things come, you have that perseverance, you have that experience to fall back on. And, it's similar to what you guys go through in the Marine Corps. It's like the reason you do the crucible at the end of, I should say, I assume, because I was never in the Marine Corps, and I'm not part of the Marine Corps, but, is so that when you do have to go to war, some of those, you've experienced some of these things, like staying up for days on end and having limited food, right? It makes it easier once you experience these things. And the more you experience them, the more you put yourselves in situations where you need to persevere, and you need to learn what it means to not quit and to keep moving forward. The easier it becomes when you have to do it. So I believe strongly in voluntarily doing hard things, so that when they aren't voluntary, they're easier.
Yeah, can't just flip the switch on and off.
Yeah, I mean, it's that old saying, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it's, I'm trying to think the saying, but basically, you don't rise to the you don't rise to the occasion. You fall back on your training, or something like. I'm screwing the quote up, but I think you guys get the point. Is you're only going to be as good as your training, and to think like, well, when the time comes, I'll be prepared. No, you'll only be as prepared as you've trained, and have a plan or plan to fail. All those cliches are cliches for a reason. And that's why I do these things.
Yeah, I think all those people that have that mindset of, I'll be ready when the time comes, are just maybe a little scared that they're not ready, or scared to admit that they're not ready.
Yeah, there's a little bit of ego there, right? And there's a little bit of false confidence, and a little bit of that false masculinity, maybe, that we've talked about in the past. One of the things we talked about on the Iron Council All Hands On Call this morning was confidence versus humility. And I don't think you can have true humility if you don't have true confidence, right? If you're not confident in your ability, how can you be humble? about it. So I think confidence is important, but you earn that confidence by doing things and putting yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable, because that's where the growth happens.
Well, to wrap up the marathon, having run a few yourself, is there any advice you'd give to someone seeking to run their first marathon?
Yeah, just do it, right? Listen, the bottom line is if it's something that resonates with you, or you're looking to do something hard, just do it, train for it. And even if you don't maybe get all your training, and you don't maybe think you're prepared for it, put yourself out there and challenge yourself, right? But I think if it's something that resonates with you, I don't necessarily think it needs to be a marathon, but find hard things to do, right? And train for them. But sometimes life happens and you have to do it just despite your training, right? If you commit to something, maybe don't back out just because you don't feel prepared for it, right? So not sure I made a whole lot of sense there, but the bottom line is my advice would be, if you want to run a marathon, train for it, plan for it. Don't just run, hire, if it's your first one, maybe hire a coach, get a nutrition plan, pay for a training plan, or in this day and age you could put it in Chat GPT or any AI platform, and probably bang out a half decent training plan. I know there's a lot of coaches, and I do consider myself a strength coach, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for everybody. But if you don't know the experts out there, if you don't know a running coach, put it in Chat GPT and see what it comes up with. I think that's the day and age. I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for that from my strength coach friends, but it's a resource.
Yeah. Use your resources to your advantage.
There you go.
So you finish the marathon, hit a quick shower, hop on a flight out to Minnesota for a hunting trip. How was that?
Yeah, well, the hunting trip, I came up short there too. Didn't even get to take a shot. Probably passed on a few doe early in the week that they weren't gimme shots, but with the thought that, all right, the buck's coming in right behind this doe, and then by the time I decided the buck wasn't coming, it was too late to take a shot at the doe. But never saw any bucks within shooting range, and it's with a bow, for me 30-40 yards is probably my distance. That's another thing that with practice training kind of deal, is probably didn't practice enough with my bow to be comfortable past 40 yards. But probably maybe a cool story is so we were there Monday through Friday, 2 sits a day, so 10 sits total for about anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. So Wednesday night, I sit in the stand, and I sat in the stand a couple times this trip, but it was the same stand that I had shot a buck in last year, that 8-pointer that I shot. And without a doubt, it's my favorite stand there. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of activity all over that property. But so Wednesday night, I'm sitting in that stand, and 3 doe come in. 2 are in the cornfield. I can't really see them even good enough to think about taking a shot. And one is if it takes like 3 or 4 steps forward out from behind a tree, would be a broadside shot at like 20 yards. But at some point, all 3 of them look up and look in the same direction, and then take off. And I don't hear anything, or I don't see anything, but I'm like, oh, maybe a buck's chasing them. It wasn't quite the ruck yet, but it was maybe the start of the ruck. And then maybe 20 minutes later, I see a couple more doe off in the distance, and they're kind of crossing from one field to the other, but they're kind of trotting. They're not just strolling. And I've sat in that stand enough now that they usually walk down that. It's like a mowed path between the two fields into the cornfield that I'm set up in front of, but they're not walking down the path. They're just crossing over. And I'm like, man, something's definitely chasing these does. And then I see what I think, from what I can see in the tall grass, is a decent size 8-pointer. Maybe a little, not as tall as the one I shot last year, but a little thicker rack. Again, maybe 100 yards away, but I can only see the one side of the rack, the way he's standing. And then same kind of deal. He crosses over into the other field, looks back, and then takes off. So I'm like, wow, what is going on? And then like 5 minutes later, I just hear a pack of coyotes howling. It was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. I've never heard a pack of coyotes howling like this, or I shouldn't say I've never heard it, because I sometimes when you're like laying in bed at that property, you can hear them howling, but not this close. And then all I hear is just like yipping and yapping, and what I thought was that they had gotten something. Maybe they caught one of the deer, or something, or what Matt, the property owner, had told me is they might have actually been fighting each other. But then like another 5 minutes go by, and I have 4 or 5 coyotes running around my tree stand, which was pretty wild. And I actually drew my bow and was trying to, there was one running back and forth in front of the tree stand. It just wouldn't stop. And again, the property owner, Matt, said if I had like howled at it or barked at it or made like a mouse sound, it would have stopped for a second, but I would have had been ready to shoot it. So they're kind of like a predator that there's no real season for, I don't believe. Could be wrong about that, but I don't think there's a season. I think because they're predators, you can shoot them whenever. But would have been pretty cool if I got to shoot one of those, but I did not. And long story short, sat the next couple days and same kind of deal. Didn't really see anything within shooting range. A couple of the guys we were with, one guy got a really nice buck. They were both nice bucks, but one got a really nice buck, and then Ryan and Brecken each shot a doe, and a couple of the other guys shot does. So all in all, it was a successful week. And listen, those, just like our PA hunting trips, obviously we always want to harvest a deer and put some meat in the freezer, and but those hunting trips are just as much about spending time with good people as they are anything else. And that group of guys out in Minnesota they're just salt of the earth guys who I enjoy being around. Good fathers, good husbands, just good men all around, and just really enjoy being around them. So regardless of whether I shoot something or not out there, it's always a good time and good company.
Yeah, I think that's the more important part. It's the people you spend the time with.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this podcast is named Manhood Understood, right? So part of being a man, I believe, and there's that old saying, you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around with. And I think that's why I enjoy being around. These guys are all very successful in their own right. They're all good men. They inspire me to be better. And they're just guys that, I mean, I've only met them the last 3 or 4 years, and I only see them once a year, but it's like once a year when we get together, it's like we're old friends, and, we're sharing stories and sharing what's going on in our lives, and just super, super, grateful for Ryan for giving me the opportunity to hunt with these guys, and for the friendships that I've developed with these guys.
Yeah, well, you got anything to wrap us up here? Or?
Well, let's. You were also signed up for the Marine Corps Marathon. How were you feeling that day, or that weekend? I had driven down on Friday and met you and Sergeant Rojas at the expo to pick up our bibs, and then you were at the finish line. And how were you feeling that weekend, having known that you were supposed to run it but got injured and couldn't?
Well, I was fortunate that I was able to pass my ticket off to Rojas and let him run it. He wanted to run it, so being able to provide it for him was better than just letting the ticket go to waste. And it was still a fun weekend to be around everything. Of course, would have enjoyed to run it, but there's always next year. So
Yeah, I think the lesson there is that, life happens, right? And we have these plans, and you know, that old saying, we make plans and God laughs. So, or Mike Tyson's saying, everybody has a plan to get punched in the face. And the key there is to keep moving forward. I like that you didn't say that, oh, I was feeling bad for myself, feeling sorry for myself. It's just and I like that you made something positive out of it, right? Like, you were able to give Rojas, somebody who he wanted to run it, you were able to transfer your bib to him and give him the opportunity to run it. So I appreciate that. And I think it's a good lesson for our listeners is that, we don't, for both of us, my experience with not, reaching my goal of sub 4 hour, your experience of not being able to run it at all, like, life goes on, and you keep moving forward. And as long as you keep moving forward, in the end, you can say that you won, right? And winning doesn't always mean taking first place in the race. I have this philosophy that I win. And when I'm lying on my deathbed, I'll be able to look back and say, I won. And that doesn't mean I always took first place. That doesn't mean that I was always the best. It means that I always showed up to the best of my ability. And whatever the circumstances were, I persevered. And I think that's a good lesson for both of us with this Marine Corps Marathon. Is didn't go exactly how we planned. You weren't able to run it. I didn't necessarily finish my goal, but we're going to keep moving forward, and more than likely we're going to run it together next year, and I'll get that sub 4 hour goal, and you'll get your finisher medal.
yeah, kind of like control. You can control. You can't really.
That's it.
Necessarily control getting injured, but you control how you respond to it. So,
amen. Little bringing a little stoicism into the podcast at the end there. I like it. One of my I've become quite I can't say I'm a stoic per se, but I've certainly dived deep into stoic philosophy. So I appreciate that sentiment.
all right, I think it's a good note to end us off here.
All right, son. Always good to talk to you. Look forward to another podcast next week, and for our listeners out there, we have a few guests lined up, so look forward to that. And you won't have to just listen to me and Vince ramble on. You can listen to some more interesting people.
All right, Dad. See you next week.
All right, son. Love you.
Love you too.